You're listening to the Cantina Cast, your home for thought-provoking Star Wars talk. Join Adler and Jonesy in breaking down the latest news, trailers, movies, and of course, your favorite characters from a galaxy far, far away.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cantina Cast. My name is Albert Padilla, and this is the third episode of a bonus series of episodes we're calling From a Certain Point of View. And the title of this episode is called You Don't Mean Old Luke Kenobi, Do You? So for those of you that have been following all of our 10-year anniversary celebration events and that sort of thing, we thought we'd put forward these bonus shows where we allow you, some of our more loyal listeners, followers, supporters of the show, to come on, bring your topics to talk about, and we get to just kind of sit back and have a nice Star Wars chat. And these have been really great. I mean, this is again the third one we've done. Had some really great conversations, and tonight is a really interesting topic that had never really clicked with me until it was presented. So we'll get to that in a second, but I'm going to bring somebody on that you all are very familiar with, hopefully by now. It's Jonesy. Jonesy, welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you. Now in full high definition.
Right. We kicked it up to 1080p, we think, but I don't know.
We've joined the 2010s. We've finally made it.
You can see the gray coming in a little bit better now.
I don't know.
Thank more than anything.
About. You look beautiful.
Thank you. So do you, sir.
Thank you.
And before we get too ahead of ourselves, coming in without his targeting computer is somebody you guys are probably very familiar with. So if you follow Discord, he's a very active member on Discord. He's one of our Patreon members as well. One of the funnier guys, I would say, on Discord. I tend to giggle every time he posts something. But please welcome to the show, Mr. Youthall, or what do you want to be called? MJP, or MPJ, Youthall, Mike. We don't want to call you Mike because that's got a bad ring around here sometimes.
So the claim to that one. So MPJ is good. Otherwise, the screen name would be Uthal for maybe not that long.
Okay, so I'm gonna just stop you right now because I've asked Jonesy, and I think he's explained it to me, and it didn't click, or I don't remember. I don't know what happened, but where does your name come from? Because you've had this name for a while, and I've never understood what the origin was.
Yeah, my name comes from, it's actually the reason I started on Discord, which was serendipitous, because then that led me to everyone at the Cantina Cast.
Yeah.
But it's my Dungeons and Dragons, or my first Dungeons and Dragons character name. And it was for maybe not that long, because he was a Goliath barbarian, so all about blood and glory.
Right. No armor.
No armor, brute force.
Right.
And then he actually died in a session last month. So it wasn't that long. I think I played him maybe a year.
Yeah.
And now it's someone new, but the name will live on.
Yes, his legacy.
We'll pour one out for him.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming on to the show, and thank you for bringing your topic. Again, when I remember telling Jonesy, we kind of massaged this one over the last couple of weeks, and I remember telling Jonesy, hey, here's what we're talking about. And he looked at me and I was just kind of like, I don't know where it's going yet, but it was really early on. And it wasn't until we started kind of massaging that out and teasing it out a little bit that I felt like, hey, yeah, I get what he's doing here. So, so tonight we're really going to kind of compare, for lack of a better term, we're going to compare Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi to Ben Kenobi in A New Hope, and in some of the same actions they took, right? Or maybe some of the same inactions they took, and kind of explain the differences between the two and some of the similarities as well. But for you, what inspired you to kind of come up with this the idea here for the show?
It came out of a lot of the negative feedback and backlash from The Last Jedi, and that like with me as well, when I first saw it, after seeing it was the dream of, well, oh man, I really wish I could see it like just a full 2-hour Star Wars action movie of Luke Skywalker running around the galaxy and just clearing out the First Order.
Yeah.
Because he's established so well in the original trilogy. But then after seeing it the first time, sitting on it a bit, and then watching again, so I realized a big part of the sequel trilogy is that it's moving on to the next generation. And so it shouldn't just be 2 hours of Luke, because it's not about him anymore.
Right. Yeah.
And so then, okay, what was his role in there? And then it was looking, okay, kind of fits. He's kind of the old hermit now, like Obi-Wan was on Tatooine when we first saw him.
Mm-hmm.
And then, that just everything he did in The Last Jedi. It's not a shot-for-shot remake of what Obi-Wan did in New Hope, because that would be also a waste of a movie.
Episode 7, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. Hey. But it's there are a lot of similarities, and to me, it really makes sense, because who trained Luke? Obi-Wan.
Right.
He's the Jedi that he knew. Like, he's the one he learned from. That's all he knew.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think what's fun about the topic is that while we see the similarities and some of the more overarching parallels, there's really a completely different perspective of where they're coming in from it at. And so it's really it's cool to kind of talk and debate. Are there really similarities, or is it really just we've applied this, and what is there actually something that Luke learned, or is it just this is the way that this is what happens when you get a walking stick and you get old? I don't know. And so those are it's going to be an interesting discussion as we walk through a few of the bullets we made here for it and get through it and see, are they really following that same path, or is there something that differs and breaks them apart a little bit from that?
Yeah. Well, let's. So we've got basically 4 topics here, and the first one we're going to dive into is we kind of summarize this as confronted by darkness, right? So in the original, let's just go back to. I guess we'll start with The Last Jedi and then kind of work our way back to A New Hope. But in The Last Jedi, you've got a character in Luke Skywalker, like you said, he's not in his prime anymore, although he's arguably extremely powerful at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But he's also faced and challenged with this idea of this evil, this darkness that's starting to grow. And he needs to make a decision about it. What do I do? Do I, we all know about that scene where he has that moment of weakness and kind of pulls back from that. And that kind of leads him to kind of go into exile at that point, shut himself off from the Force, shut himself off from all of his friends and his family, to the point where there's now a mass search out for him, right? The entire galaxy is looking for this lost hero now. And maybe similarly, in New Hope, we've got a character in Obi-Wan Kenobi who, after the rise of the Empire, and along with other Jedi that still happen to be alive, they realize that, hey, we can't be out here anymore. It is too dangerous for us to be out here. And so they take a leave of absence. They go into some kind of an exodus and a retreat, and really just hiding, for lack of a better term, right? They are literally hiding from the Empire to preserve who they are, the Jedi Order, their ways, and they're coming from two different angles. So why don't we start with the I guess the obvious question of did either of them really feel like they had a choice here? Did Kenobi feel like he had a choice? He didn't have a choice but to go into hiding. Did he feel like maybe there was something more he could have done by confronting? I mean, we know Yoda left, and so he probably would have just kind of followed along his lines. But do you think ever he would have thought to stick around and fight? And same thing with Luke Skywalker. That would have been, they both would have been very different outcomes, right? If had they not chose to go into hiding for a lot of different reasons. But what do you think?
I think that they didn't, they felt they didn't have a choice, that both Obi-Wan and Luke were, although they're Jedi and on the light side fighting for good, they still were extremists in the sense that they had their firm beliefs of the light side needs to conquer the dark side.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Anakin is rising or being swayed by the dark side and being taken, and then Ben is being taken by Snoke and the dark side. And okay, well, the dark side got them, so we need to either destroy them, otherwise the dark side will win. And then they both failed in their tasks of, it was an all or nothing game to them, it seemed. It's like, okay, well, we couldn't defeat them, so the dark side wins, so we have to give up. And like as silly as it seemed, because then it kind of helped fulfill the prophecy themselves by letting them go and taking themselves out of the equation, so then the dark side could continue to grow once they went into hiding.
Yeah.
And strengthen the cycle of the dark side.
Right.
Jonesy, go ahead. I was
Yeah,
going to
I
ask you a
think-
question about whether or not you felt like, I mean,
Yeah.
your thoughts fine as well, but I want to know, like, from you, how different this thing would have been. Like, what potentially would we have seen or, not seen had they not decided to hide?
Right. I mean, with Obi-Wan and Yoda, I mean, they were reeling, right? So, I mean, they're in this position of they're being wiped out, and their ability to respond to this, especially fragmented. They don't know how many are left. They don't know who is around. They don't know who to trust. All the troops have turned on them. And I think they were really just trying to, like, what do we do to regroup? And Obi-Wan, I think that one of the differences I see between Obi-Wan and Luke in this is that Obi-Wan is really taking his lead from Yoda. He's still very much the student in this, where Luke, whether you like his decision or not, was trying to be proactive of like, I need to take these actions because I am seeing something that I know I can't control and something that I feel like I am going to make worse. I haven't seen this power since Vader and since Ben Solo. And he's trying to do what he feels is best, even though he's completely misguided on what that decision is. But I feel like they really come from very different perspectives and very different angles on this, because Obi-Wan, I don't know what their choice would have been. I mean, they're being overwhelmed across the galaxy.
Mhm.
And so I'm wondering, like, what other choice would they have had? And again, they have no army at this point. The rebellion isn't a thing yet. It's still just a group of senators for the most part. And I think they're just in this position where they've got to lay low and figure out what to do about it. And maybe they laid a little too low, but at the same time, their allies knew they were out there with Organa and the rest of the Senate.
Yeah. So I guess MPJ, for you, them both going into exile, Luke fearing the dark side, Obi-Wan Kenobi going into hiding because of, Vader. And although he didn't know that was Vader right at the time, it came up a little bit later. But certainly he knows that the Empire is there. He understands what happened with Senator Palpatine, now the Emperor Palpatine. Do you feel as though that they were in part, do you think either one of them felt like they were responsible for this? And I think Luke's probably an easier answer, because I think we almost get him saying that, right? But do you think that Obi-Wan takes any blame for what happened to Anakin specifically? I mean, and again, I'll just say this. I mean, we get the line of, I failed you, right? So, I mean, there's kind of a very implied there, but to what extent do you think he feels responsible for what occurred?
Yeah, well, that's where I think that that either of them don't feel that much responsible for it, because it was the sense of, we need to defeat the dark side, and right now it's essentially all culminated in Anakin or Ben with Luke, and they essentially gave it their best shot. Well, we need to strike this person down now. They're the most powerful. They will tip the balance against us. And okay, I fought my fight, so I did what I could. See you later. And that, although it sounds a bit cowardly, like at the same time, going into their Jedi training of, like, there will always be balance in the Force, so maybe you have to pick your moments or buy some time to come back later.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering how long this path with Ben was going, right? It seems like it was an instant moment of decision and of regret, but you have to feel like there were things leading up to it, right? That for him to even want to peek into the potential darkness that Ben has, there had to have been other things going on during that time, right? That have given him some reason to want to explore and to think that that's an issue. And it can't just be the bloodline, because Luke has it in him as well, and he can't just be prodding into his mind and his heart and all of that. So there had to have been things going on that we're not privy to, right? And I think with Obi-Wan, we saw this. If you remember the Obi-Wan Anakin comic book, this responsibility, for Anakin that he had because of Qui-Gon and the pressure of all of that, and they didn't know how to coexist. And we see this all the way through the prequel trilogy, even through the final moments of Revenge of the Sith, that they still, while they are absolutely brothers, they still have this just fundamental difference of opinion of everything. And they just never quite were able to jive with they're absolute, and you don't have to think the same or anything like that. But Anakin, and I think Luke inherited this from Anakin a bit. This wild habit of sorts of just impromptu decision, right? These just jumping in, leaping feet first into it, and that's admirable in some ways. But at the same time, without that measure and without being able to pause and think about that a little bit more, it's just, you're going to make the wrong decision over and over and over. And with Anakin, fortunately for Luke, he kind of found a way across that. But with Anakin, he just tipped all the way over. And unfortunately, with Obi-Wan, the conflict was there enough with Padme and everything else that just completely ripped it apart.
Yeah. MPJ, do you think we'll ever get any kind of, even if you don't, are you hopeful that we'll ever get some of the backstory between Luke and Kylo Ren, either in a comic book or a book of some sort, TV show? What do you think we're going to see in there? Do you think what Jonesy was alluding to, we're going to kind of see those little fractures start to occur, right? The little cracks in the dam there that kind of lead and culminate into his eventual, churn to Kylo Ren?
Yeah, well, I mean, I definitely hope so. And that I got to think, right, a comic, or I could even see it being a short animated series, because they don't have to worry about getting Mark Hamill or not getting him and the drama that can create. Because, that is one big thing in The Last Jedi was that they glossed over is, well, how much time really passed between Luke taking that group of kids or younglings to start training, and then how quickly did it turn on him, where Ben destroyed his training grounds and became Kylo Ren and bailed out of there. And it definitely leaves me wanting more, and I hope they do something with it, because there's a lot to explore there. And it was enough of a gray area that anything you do come out with isn't really going to taint what we already have in the movies. Like, they don't need to do damage control or anything extreme. Right. That they have a lot to work with just the simple foundation The Last Jedi gave the relationship.
Yeah.
Right. And we're not really looking to fix anything in The Last Jedi, but I think it really would round out Luke's character a bit to give us that a little bit more as to why he had that moment of weakness and why it was so extreme. And I agree with MPJ that this is a moment. I think we do need to see it. And if it's in a comic or whatever that might be, I think that's fine. I think a comic actually works really well because it's a bit lower profile, I think, and that's not a bad thing sometimes. But with that, you can have those moments where you can see what is going on behind the scenes. What is Snoke doing? What is Snoke's actual influence over Luke, much less Ben, and then over the family.
Right.
And what is that? What does that look like? Because it's not just Ben with Luke; it's Ben with Leia and Ben with Han. It's everything around this family has. I like the word you used, Albert, was fractured, and Snoke is a huge part of that, or Palpatine, whoever you want to equate that to. But I think it's important for us to be able to see at least glimpses of it. We don't need the whole story. We don't need it spelled out for us. But give us a little something. Give us one of these one-shot comics of Luke and Ben. Like we've had with some of the other ones that they've done a pretty good job on some of those. So I think this is one we could really benefit from.
Yeah, I mean, there's that saying that it takes a village to raise a child, and the same is true of Kylo Ren, a killer, murderer, an animal, monster, if you will. Right? There are a lot of things that factored into it, and I think that's not to really turn this into a discussion about The Last Jedi, but I didn't have the strongest opinion of it when it came out. I think where I found my peace was in just reconciling that the Luke Skywalker that I wanted to see after 30 years is out there, and I may or may not see those adventures in my lifetime, but they happened, right? Even though I didn't get to see them on screen, I know they happened, and I made peace with it, knowing that is a different Luke Skywalker. Kind of like what MPJ was saying earlier, this was not technically about him anymore. It was about the new heroes, and that's ultimately how I got there and got to just to be able to appreciate The Last Jedi for what it is. That said, I do want to see those, and I'm kind of torn because the Luke and the Mandalorian wasn't my favorite, and I know that sounds sacrilegious to a lot of people, but I was pretty outspoken about that, and I think I've made my peace with that too. But I want more. I really want to see those adventures, and I want to see him leading and being and faltering. Right. I want to see him make mistakes. I want to see that progression path for him that gets him to the point where we see him in the Last Jedi, where he feels like he's just so broken that he has no other option but to exile himself. Right. How do you get there from where he was in The Mandalorian? That is, to me, is like the story that I want. Right. I want somebody to tell that story because I think it's going to be an amazing story. At least it's in my head, at least right now.
Right. So MPJ, when we get Kenobi, and when we get the Obi-Wan Kenobi story with Ewan McGregor, do you think this is just going to get stronger in us, though, that we're going to really start to crave to see what happened with Luke as we fill in the gaps with Obi-Wan? When we've had a novel in the past that's now Legends, and now we're going to get 6 episodes. I believe it's 6, right? 6 episodes of Obi-Wan. How much is that going to fuel the fires, do you think, to learn more about Luke, very much in this, in the context of this conversation of, why they made these decisions and what their paths actually looked like?
Yeah, no, I think, definitely, the whole thing of barring the success of the Obi-Wan series, which seems, because we don't really know too much about it aside from Hayden's coming back and it's going to be Ewan McGregor. So it's promising just on that foundation. But that, like that, I definitely will, like you're mentioning, like crack open the door on, hey, we can do this essentially mini series. And maybe it is just one season of the Kenobi series. And that, we can just pop in just one little series of, maybe Luke and Ben, or Luke in some of his gaps from, what is now the Mandalorian Luke to the Last Jedi Luke.
Right.
And because there's so many ways they can go with it to just get something to fill it out more.
Yeah. Let's talk about the motive, I guess, behind both of them in training, really, because if you think about it, you've got Ben Kenobi, who has this young boy. He's been watching him. And I think most people know the answer. Although if you've not watched, Rebels and the Clone Wars, this may not be clicking for you. But let's talk about that. I guess the differences and the motives behind Kenobi deciding to train Luke Skywalker and Luke Skywalker deciding to train Rey. Again, there are similarities there, where they were both confronted with this option to train. Kenobi was all about it. He really definitely wanted to do it for very specific reasons. And you had Luke Skywalker, who was adamantly opposed to it until something clicked and something came around for him. But maybe start with Luke, MPJ, and why did he say no originally in your mind and from your certain point of view, or why did he finally concede and give in to training Rey?
Well, I think, he said no to Rey initially. I think because of the fear, because that was the whole catalyst for what got him to be the hermit on Octo, when we saw him, that he was so afraid that the dark side had corrupted Ben, and Ben was lost to the dark side, and then he became Kylo Ren. And that, like on the side path of that, of course, Luke didn't see or seem to see or realize his own fear is also what perpetuated the reality that came to be, because he was so afraid of Ben that he's like, oh, I must kill him. And then, of course, he had that double take and didn't do it, but it's too late, because when you have the knife to your nephew's neck, he's probably not, I don't think anyone would like that. And then, it spiraled to Kylo and his knights, and it was like, oh, I tried and I failed, so I'm just gonna keep repeating myself and failing more, and I'm so afraid of failure. And that even before he really understood the hope that there was with Rey and the power she had, that it was just the flat out, if anyone had come to him, this is nope, not going to train him. And that I think his view turned on that a bit, because he saw Rey's persistence and hope, like he had when he was younger, with when he first met Obi-Wan. It's like, I gotta go fight, I gotta get in and make a difference in the galaxy. And that Rey was all alone essentially. So it was a good time for her to have a mentor.
Absolutely.
And that, yeah,
Um,
get some clarity.
So Jonesy, for Luke, on the other side, I mean, go ahead and give anybody that not following that whole storyline, but why was he so inclined and just dedicated to training a young Luke Skywalker who really had no experience whatsoever other than the name?
Right. I mean, and a lot of it goes back to Qui-Gon and the lineage, right, for Obi-Wan. But I think some of it, were you asking about Luke training Rey or Obi-Wan training Luke?
Obi-Wan training Luke. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think some of it is you look at the position that both Luke and Obi-Wan went into and how they spent some years, right? Obi-Wan went in at a time of darkness, but with a position of hope. And his job was to protect and to really nurture that hope and that light, that one day it was going to come about. And he still had guidance. I mean, we presume that he was still somehow in contact with Yoda and somehow maybe in contact with Qui-Gon. And so he had people that were help guiding him in the long run as well. Where Luke, when he completely shut himself out, he was the hope, right? And then when he lost all of it and shut himself down, he just brooded. And so he had to be pulled out of that dark. It was like it's almost the other side of the coin, right? He had to be brought out of it. Where Obi-Wan was the one who was responsible for keeping it. That was his purpose. It was his drive.
Mm-hmm.
Where Luke, I think we have some inconsistencies with what we believe in some of this, but we don't really know what Luke's driver was coming out of Return of the Jedi and in this gap between this. Presumably he started a school, right? He had the kids, he had Ben. But what was he really doing in all of this time? What was his driver? What was his intent besides searching for artifacts and things like that? We haven't really got that clarity about what his purpose was. And Obi-Wan benefited from having a very clear purpose. And I'm assuming we're going to see that in full display. And maybe he has his moments of doubt, but he knows what he is supposed to be doing. And I think Luke, he had the you and I have talked about this a few times, Albert. He had the weight of the galaxy on him as the savior. And we hear this in Last Jedi, that pressure and for him to get it all right all the time was just too much.
Right.
And to where he just became this self-deprecating, hermit.
Yes.
And Obi-Wan didn't have to have that burden on him. He had the burden of keeping it alive, but at the same time, he had the benefit of not being a celebrity anymore and actually being kind of an enemy number one. So but that's kind of a key difference between the where they're at, though, I think, with some of that.
Yeah, and so for Luke Skywalker, okay, so Luke Skywalker, after post Return of the Jedi, a lot of the questions that you're hinting at, I think, are a lot of the questions the galaxy had at large. Right. What is the purpose of the Jedi at this point? What is the Academy going to look like once it was stood up? What is their purpose? What were they going to do? What was Luke's vision for the Jedi Order? Was it more of the peace protecting type people? Was it more of a warrior? Was it some kind of a hybrid? And I don't know that Luke had all those answers either, right? I think he was kind of feeling this out. And we don't have a lot here, but those are the things that, and he probably made some bad decisions. He made some bad choices and probably regretted some of the things he did, especially culminating in his, nephew, turning to the dark side or potentially turning to the dark side. So all of that is very intriguing stuff that hopefully, we get a little bit later. I think I want to go back to Kenobi, though, and I want to go back to Clone Wars, where Maul is dying in his arms, and he asks him, is he the chosen one, right? And Kenobi clearly says, yes, he is. And that is the prime motivator for him. That is why he is so hyper-focused on ensuring that he stays on Tatooine, although now it sounds like he's going to get off the planet, and that I'm actually okay with that. But that's the hope that you're talking about, right? He believes at that point that, okay, the prophecy probably was mistold, and maybe it wasn't Anakin Skywalker. We were too close to it. It turns out it probably is this boy, and so I've got to stay here on Tatooine. I've got to make sure that he gets healthy and grows up and everything, because at some point there is going to be a time, some kind of catalyst that's going to spark the hope of the rebellion all over again. And so he wants to see that through the end, right? And like you said, part of this is Qui-Gon's legacy, right? Qui-Gon, he feels at this point that maybe Qui-Gon did get that part wrong, but he's got to see this through. So again, it's easier, it's cleaner for him. Not easier to execute, but in terms of where his focus is and what he's trying to do, he's got a pretty clear path. He's just got to get this kid to a right age and get him trained in some way, and know that he is going to be the chosen one that's going to bring balance to the Force. So very, very different ways and different reasons as to why they're kind of behind a lot of the motivation and training here.
I didn't mean to start laughing at you, Albert. I just thought you were going to start singing my, this here Anakin guy.
Yeah.
I swear it was going down this Weird Al path, man.
Yeah, well, long time ago.
But think about this too. So Luke was pulling the ancient Jedi texts. He was trying to find things. Obi-Wan had a lifetime of knowing what a Jedi Order looks like, and what that structure looks like, and what training looks like, and all of that. And Luke was presumably building all of that from scratch and from a bunch of books. And whenever Yoda decided to, pop up and poke him with his gimmer stick.
Yeah.
So, but I think it's very, that pressure you were talking about is just immense. And that you feel like you've got to do all of this legwork yourself. And Yoda likes to speak in riddles half the time. And, Obi-Wan just likes to tell him to go talk to somebody else. So,
right. Yeah, exactly. All right, MPJ, I've got a very controversial question. We've talked about this a few times now. But why in the world do Jedi seem to constantly be putting the faith of the entire galaxy in the hands of young people? And we saw it with Anakin Skywalker in episode 1. Padme calls Qui-Gon Jinn out for doing it. You've got Luke Skywalker here doing it, or I'm sorry, Obi-Wan Kenobi doing it with Luke Skywalker. You've got Luke doing it with Rey. To some extent, Kanan did this with Ezra. But we seem to put a lot of faith in the youth in this galaxy. And we're seeing some of that in the High Republic, although it's a little bit different there. And so this is kind of a half-joking kind of question, but
yeah,
what is it about? What's so intriguing here? Like, why do they keep doing it?
Yeah, I'd say the best descriptor would be a type of senior negligence. It's,
Right,
I've seen, I've been through so much, all this turmoil, dark side, light side. Oh, who's chosen, who's not? Is this prophecy coming? Or no, it was false prophecy. Just, Yoda's your best example. Luke tries to go back to him to get just one last nugget of wisdom, and Yoda's like, I'm out of here, man, and literally dies to avoid it.
Yeah.
So
no thanks.
But it's, on the more serious side, a little bit of it is the hope of, with some of them literally being more senior, they know their time's coming to an end. So, it's the next generation of, and then the pressure of the dark side at these times, showing no mercy, is in almost complete control, conquering the galaxy. And so you got to play every card you have, even if it is, essentially sending underage people to war. And that, as the track record has shown, they've, found good ones and it's worked out, luckily.
Well, maybe that's why, right? They've seems to be working, so we'll just keep this going, right? But it certainly is bumpy to get there, and to put it in real world perspective. We send our babies to war at 18. These are kids that we're putting, arming and sending them out to the front lines, and so there's probably something in that as well. It does feel like some of these are much younger people with little to no experience, and so that's just just echoing what we do here in real life. Jonesy, do you got any wisdom, insight into? And we're talking about a nation versus a galaxy, though. Let's put things in perspective, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, I think and maybe it's more of a question somewhere in here, but Yoda said, we are what they grow. We are what they grow beyond, right? And I'm wondering if that's just we've seen this. I think we're seeing it with High Republic too, right? Forcing these kids or the students to put faith in themselves and put faith in the Force in order to accomplish something. So we can definitely, I think there's a fair and valid argument that they're putting a little too much on them. But I think in general, the general principle of it is that they're entrusting the next generation to do the things that they were unable to do and to get past their own biases and things like that. If we want to bring it into a real world context, right? We always hope our kids and our, the young people around us, we always have a lot more faith in our future because of we know all the things that we get wrong. We recognize, and it's difficult to change the things that we believe and the things that the way that we behave, even though we're like, dang it, I wish I wouldn't have done that again, but I just can't stop it. And I'm too old to change, that type of thing. And so it's funny on one hand, but on the other side, it's just really true. It mimics our society today. We just have this unrealistic, but also this just really pure sense of faith in the next generation to come, until they become millennials and they disappoint us immensely.
Oh, here we go.
but I mean, in principle, I think that's just something that we do. We look at our young, and we look at the ones who are going to come next to us, and they're going to not take care of us, but they're going to be the ones that are going to help write this, because they're not going to have all of the burden and the baggage that we did. When in reality, no, they'll just have a different burden and different baggage that they get to inherit from us and fix some things and then break some others, and they'll pass it on. And it's human and galaxy nature, I suppose. But I mean, you don't do this with kids. I have a problem with them doing this with like 8-year-olds out there, younglings or something. Younglings, yeah,
right. You must be at least this tall to rule the galaxy,
right?
Or wreck it. Either way,
but you can ride the ride.
Yeah. I mean, personally, I believe the children are our future. Teach them well.
Yeah.
Let them lead the way. That kind of thing. Yeah.
We've been singing Michael Jackson for the last 2 days, folks. Not even
Whitney
kidding.
Houston, but whatever.
Oh, is it? No,
Yeah,
Michael Jackson did that.
No, it's Whitney Houston.
Oh.
You're gonna challenge me on 80s? All right. Let's talk about the last topic here, and what we're calling self-sacrifice. Because in both instances, you had Luke Skywalker, understanding that he was going to pass the torch on, right, with Rey and eventually Rey Skywalker. At the same time, you've got Obi-Wan Kenobi, who very clearly gave his life up, which shocked a lot of us, obviously, for the first time. And that whole line of, if you strike me down, I'll become more powerful than you can possibly imagine. I kind of hinted that there was probably two primary reasons here as to why both of those guys did it. MPJ, do you want to just kind of take that and talk about what was similar in both of them? And then if there's anything else that you see here in terms of their motive and why they would self-sacrifice themselves like this?
Yeah, the main or like sort of immediate benefit and point was a distraction. That the focus was on them, like when Luke, Han, and Leia are escaping to the Falcon, that Obi-Wan literally consumes the focus of Vader
and the stormtroopers.
Yeah, right. It's all stormtroopers kind of freeze up, like, hey, Vader's here. Let's see what he does first. I'm not crossing him. And so then it gives them all time to escape. And then similar with Luke on Crate, that the forces are dead-ended, literally almost trapped in a cave, and that both of them understand their former apprentices well enough to know that the dark side has corrupted them to obsession and to a passion to destroy their former masters. And Luke knows, everything, literally everything is focused on him. Kylo threw everything at him, shot every laser he could afford at them, or at Luke. And completely forgot that there's an entire small military, in the base behind them.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and it's Poe Dameron, right? I mean, he kind of tells the audience, "Hey, look, he's buying us time. Let's get out of here," kind of thing.
Right.
So,
yeah.
But we've made fun of that, and that's not indicative of just that movie. All of Star Wars, sometimes it's a little like right in your face, on your nose, kind of. That was kind of cool, right? Your face, kind of on your nose, kind of thing. But yeah, so I mean, those are probably the big two primary reasons. Jonesy, anything else beyond that, and then or anything? You got anything deeper? And then maybe if you could just touch on our kind of our last question here of whose sacrifice was greater in your eyes or in the eyes of the galaxy, Was it Kenobi's or was it somebody like Luke Skywalker?
Well, I think Obi-Wan's look before he gives himself up to Vader is very telling. And that smart ass little
He's like,
smirk.
I'll be back.
That's right. He's
I
like,
want to get you.
he's like, watch this.
Oh, yeah.
Type of thing. And I think which leads right into that question, Albert. So it's a good segue, man. You're really good at this. You should really podcast.
Thanks.
But yeah, it's just, I think when you look at the galaxy may have valued Luke's more because that story is going to persevere. That story is going to, pervade culture for a long time, where Obi-Wan's likely won't or didn't. Right. It was very much behind the scenes. It was amidst the enemy. 4 people saw it, as compared with, 25. We've increased our chances 5-fold here. But so I think Obi-Wan's, but I still think Obi-Wan's was probably more important and more impactful in that regard, because Luke's training was still very, very early. Leia was still around for Rey, right? So there were still other people that he could do that. I mean, Maz was there too, and she probably did some of Rey's training too. I'm waiting for Albert to react.
No, sorry, didn't compute.
But I mean, so Obi-Wan knew that as for what Luke needed to accomplish with the Death Star in particular and things like that, I don't think he could have done anything else more for Luke. They didn't have time to do any of this, and Obi-Wan knew that he could help Luke in other ways and help him really spiritually as much as anything else. Where Luke, again, knew he didn't need to do that because Leia was a much better fit for that for Rey. And so I think that was a key difference. But for Luke, there was nobody else to do that for him. And Obi-Wan had to transcend and kind of go to that next level in order to do that, in order just to get him out on that path and to send him to Yoda. And until we're able to do that, but they had all these other hurdles to get across first, where really the first word they just had to escape them, with Last Jedi.
Yeah. What about you? If you had to pick one, and we're looking at the chat right now, it looks like we're going to go 50-50 on the split, for those of us, those are the guys that are chiming in, but, and it's a good question. In your eyes, which was the greater sacrifice?
Yeah, that's where I would differ with Jonesy, that I'd say Luke's was the greater sacrifice, because as the Battle of Crate is going on, of course, that's part of what they kind of throw in our face too and clearly spell out for us. We've sent out our call to the galaxy. We've sent out our call to anyone that has previously supported the rebellion to come in our final hour of need, and no one is responding. Message has been seen, no response. And that, without that, they were like the last ones in the resistance or rebellion, whatever they decided to call themselves that day. And if Kylo gets through with his forces, then it's done. Hope in the galaxy is snuffed out. And that Luke understood that he had been the hope for the galaxy for a generation, and that he went into hiding and was still the hope. So everyone still had so much hope in him that they were combing the galaxy for him. They had to find Luke because he's the one that can make a difference and do it all. And that although it wasn't going like that high action, just cutting through the First Order, that his sacrifice then let them get out and solidified his story as legend across the galaxy, and he reignited the hope.
Yeah.
So break the tie, Albert.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So I'll take the political stance here and say ever the politician. I think the question, it's a trick question, because in my mind, well, first off, this is MPJ's show, so he's right? He's always right.
Wow.
Only in this episode. You get it. This is your episode. So, but that aside, that's a trick question, because I think the way I pose it was, in the eyes of the galaxy, whose sacrifice is greater? And I think if you take that approach, like you said, they don't know. The galaxy doesn't know about Kenobi. In fact, he's not even a legend at this point. The Jedi are no longer a legend at this point. So the galaxy at large knows Luke Skywalker. They know all of the deeds he did, all the things he had done, right? And that is what ultimately led to, but there are more of us. Had he not made that sacrifice, Luke Skywalker, they would have never been able to pull together the army of forces that they had in order to take down Palpatine and the new fleet of Star Destroyers. So from that perspective, I think that is the greater sacrifice. Me personally, I do feel like it is Luke Skywalker as a viewer, only because that was, as Leia said, their most desperate hour, right? That was really the very end of it. I mean, you can make the argument later on that, in the future, they were desperate as well. And that had really allowed, if Palpatine was allowed to leave Exegol with that fleet, I don't know that anything would have been able to stop them at that point, right? It would have been years, millennia before something was able to kind of come back and rise to kind of take back power. But yeah, I think that's kind of the my entry or my way to weasel out of this. In the eyes of the galaxy, I think it's probably Luke Skywalker, but my own personal opinion, definitely Luke Skywalker, or sorry, Ben Kenobi, his sacrifice was more. So I don't know. I mean, and again, we're still seeing people go back and forth here in the chat about which one was better. And if you guys have an opinion, throw it at us. Again, it's if you guys are mad, blame MPJ because this was his question and his
find
stuff
me on
here.
Discord.
I'm on Discord. Yeah, you can find him on Discord there.
Oh no.
Oh yeah, we lost Jonesy.
Oh, he was so upset.
He was so upset. He's such a spoiled sport, man. Whenever he's like tell him he's wrong and he knows he's wrong, he always leaves the show like mid show, just like that. It's unbelievable.
And I was just going to talk about how the greatest thing Obi-Wan and Luke had in common were their wonderful beards. And it's not even right to enjoy it.
Nope, he's not. He's a sore loser. No. I think we lost Jonesy, but he'll be back and in greater numbers. So, well, that's actually the very end of the show. So we'll end it. We'll leave it there. Again, MPJ, thanks for coming on, man, and thanks for bringing this topic and really kind of putting this whole juxtaposition of Kenobi and Skywalker and showing the parallels that they both kind of went through, but for very different reasons. So,
yeah.
If you guys you guys can come on Discord and you can talk to MPJ, you can talk to myself, you can talk to Jonesy whenever he's free, whenever he's ready to talk to people again. He'll be available if you'd like. And we'll be back in just a few days here. We've got the May the 4th be with y'all. We're doing that. It's a Austin charity event. We'll be broadcasting that on May the 4th. And we'll be back on May 6th to cover The Bad Batch. And that'll be the first episode that we'll be covering as part of that series. And we'll kind of continue and go from there. So this is normally where I give Jonesy the last word. But you know what? Yuthal, this is your show. So any final words before we get out of here?
I feel like I had one, but I forgot it. So
no problem.
I mean, yeah, thanks for having me on. It's been nice. I've been sitting on this idea for 2 years now.
Oh wow!
And yeah, I'm glad I've got a place, Discord, and then on here with where we're streaming it live and all the avenues that people will listen in and be able to share it and discuss it.
Yep. No, absolutely. Thanks again for doing that. And you guys can thanks for everybody that chimed in on the live show. And we'll always be here for if you guys want to join us. You can find all of the links in the show notes down below. So we'll be back again in just a few days with May the 4th be with y'all, and then The Bad Batch. So we'll see you next time.
You're still listening? Wow. That's amazing. Well, I'm here to give you the disclaimer. Normally we do a big, long, drawn-out disclaimer thing saying what's what and who's what and all that other stuff, but I think you guys kind of know that Lucasfilm and Disney have no affiliation with us at all, and we have none with them. We talk about Star Wars, which is their property and all that other good, fun stuff, but I think you can tell which is our stuff and which is their stuff. If you can't, well, then send a lawyer to send an email to me, and I'll be glad to chat with them. Other than that, you know what's what, so that's your disclaimer.